Welcome to the Cowboy Show, guys. It is a little bit past 7 p.m. on the East Coast, which means you have to look at my mug. I don't make the rules. Actually, I do make the rules. I make the rules, and you must listen to me. Good libertarian that I am. So, yeah, it's 7 p.m. You must now watch me talk and yap away at all the cool things that I know you want to hear. And since you and I both know this is going to be an amazing show, because it always is, you must like, comment, and share. And I'm going to ask you something. If you are watching this on YouTube and you have not hit subscribe, what is wrong with you? Go hit subscribe now. Don't think, why are you looking at me? Click subscribe right now. Make sure it happens. We want to make sure that you subscribe. It does matter tremendously. You know I get shadow banned because I'm the radical guy that I am. So please do that if you can. Today, I am super lucky that I have with me someone who is going to make you think very differently about what your mama told you, right? I'm going to tell you your mama's wrong. Yeah, I'm going to tell you your mama's wrong. I am. I'm going to do that. So stand by and listen, because I'm going to tell you your mama's wrong. And I'm going to have somebody with me to also tell you that your mama's wrong. So you need to be listening to this. The man himself, investor, author, professional poker player, Bill Perkins. How are you, sir?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. You wrote a book called Die with Zero.
Right.
Now, this is an odd book for several reasons. It starts with die, so that's clearly by default an odd-sounding book.
Right.
But in addition to this, you're saying basically spend all your money is basically what you're saying. Am I reading you right?
Yeah, I mean, that is one way to get to fulfillment. What I'm trying to say really is make sure that you're fulfilled and you leave everything out on the field of life. So what I want people to do is to use all their resources, and the resources we look at are your wealth, your health, and your time, and how they change throughout your life. And I want you to use every single resource towards the goal of net fulfillment. And in my book, I assume that the purpose of your life is to have maximum fulfillment, and that may be defined differently for everybody.
Sure.
And we may have different resources, different levels of wealth, health, and time left on this planet. But I want to make sure you use them all up towards your goal. And thus,
yeah, but you also bring up something in your book, right? The first, you start in your book with the story that, I mean, everybody knows, the idea of the ant and the grasshopper, right? The ant's got to work hard while the grasshopper's playing around. And then the winter comes and the grasshopper's starving and the ants all have the food. Now, the opposite obviously would be, well, then what everyone would tell you, I'm sure, well, then what are you saying? The ant should go and just, play all day? And what I got from you is, it's not that you shouldn't work hard. It's that the ants have to also play. Did I get that right?
Yeah, you got it right. And if you the fable ends with there's a time for work and there's a time for play, right? Is kind of why that is the fable that we use, and only because I'm old and we all remember the ant and the grasshopper. I don't know if kids nowadays are like, what are you talking about, ants and grasshoppers? But I use that kind of as an example because ultimately the book is about balance.
Sure.
And what's your own personal balance, and what are your fears, and what's keeping you back from being fulfilled?
Right. But with that in mind, though, you bring up the idea that your life is the sum of your experiences.
Correct.
And then you talk about, using your money to gain experience versus using your money to keep your money.
Right. I mean, the goal is not like, I use the example of like, if you have hammers and saws to build a house, right? Or those tools, the goal is not to acquire those tools. The goal is to build the house. Right. And so money is a tool for your fulfillment, for your life fulfillment, not the other way around. Your life is not here to keep creating money that's not used. Right. And so I think somewhere along the way, people who have, had their survival number covered, right? They're going to have shelter and they have their, their food, shelter, and clothing handled, above and beyond that. I think people forget the purpose of the money, right? They've been so good at acquiring money or saving money, et cetera. And the goal is not the number. The goal is, remember, your life, right? Because you only get one ride, and we're here to have the most fulfilling life. And so, I look at, all right, if the goal is to use your money, your health, and your time to get the maximum fulfillment, when do you spend it? Right. How do you spend it? How do you allocate it throughout your life? What's the optimal way according to your values, based on what you want out of life, what's the optimal way to look at this problem, this equation? How do we solve this?
Well, I saw this in a different way when I was younger. My father passed when I was very young. I was only 12 when he died, and he was young. He was 41. So when my father passed, my father was almost a spendthrift in many ways. He just threw money away. My father was the kind of guy, and you'll get this completely. We had a Lincoln Continental out front, and we couldn't drive it because we had no gas in it. But we had a Lincoln Continental. When we had it, that's for sure, right? But we couldn't put gas in it, couldn't afford it, right? So, but he wanted to have the cool things in life, and he would spend money. He would drive my mother crazy. My mother was an immigrant, so it's the perfect example of the immigrant who wants to work hard and save all the money, right?
Right.
And my father, who was like, no, who cares? I mean, this is back in the 70s. My father was a DJ in the 70s, and so he would, get his paycheck and decide, okay, I could pay the rent, or I could buy the new Earth, Wind, and Fire. I'm gonna go with Earth, Wind, and Fire. Right. So he would go there, and he wouldn't pay the rent. So, but there was a part of me as I got older that was jealous of that he had gone out and enjoyed his life, even though it was short, and I hated the fact that he had died. But there was a part of me that was jealous of that. So I think I came almost to where you're talking about, but from a very different place. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you're just kind of thinking about, like, I want to enjoy my life too, right? Like, and you saw your father do it, and it seemed reckless, not necessarily balanced, but definitely enjoyable for him, right? Maybe not for everybody in the family or his obligations. Right. Maybe he was on autopilot about buying the newest shiny thing, but he was enjoying the ride,
right,
according to the way he enjoyed the ride. And so you're like, I want to enjoy the ride, right? Like, why am I not enjoying the ride?
Well, you mentioned in your book how when you came to this in your 20s, you kind of went the opposite. You kind of became I'm going to throw all my money away. I'm going to spend all my money. I feel like I was lucky in that I saw my father do it, so I didn't do it. If that makes sense, like he gave me that ability to see it without me having to throw all my money away, but I still wanted to enjoy life, if that made any sense.
Yeah, I started out really frugal, like super, super frugal. Like, there was a book called Your Money or Your Life that I read, that
I know it.
is really about the concept of enough and teaching about what money is. Money is something you exchange your time for, is the best definition. You exchange hours of your life in exchange for money to do other things. And I thought I would save my way to riches. Right. Like, I became the first version of FIRE, which is Financial Independence, Retire Early movement.
Right.
And, my boss overheard me talking about I saved a bunch of money, and he called me a fucking idiot. And I was like, whoa. I thought he was going to pat me on the back. And he's like, no, you came here to make millions. What are you doing saving this money? Go enjoy your life. Go spend that money, basically. And it kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. And I kind of went on autopilot the other way. Right. So I was autopilot, saver, 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 saver. I was all in. Right. And then I went autopilot to, like, just the more money I made, the more money I lit on fire. Right. And I wasn't deliberate about it. The key point I was missing is that I wasn't thinking about it in terms of, like, okay, what experiences do I really want to have? What's being marketed to me? Where do they belong? Should I be doing this now, or should I be doing it in my 20s, or should this be something I do in my 30s? Or, am I giving up some sort of future gratification by, spending the money now? And it took a while for me to, think through, how do I balance this, right? Like, I don't spend all the money in 1 year. And obviously I don't want to spend the money at 89 on my deathbed. That's going to be useless, right? So what does this curve look like? When is the optimal time for me to be spending? How much I should be spending? What experiences go where, et cetera? And those thoughts and answers to those questions is what the book is about.
There we go. And for those of you who are concerned about that book, you can head to that link right there, diewithzerobook.com. It's in the description if you want to click the link. And also, by the way, on Audible. So if you want to have the audiobook, and this gentleman here reads it himself. I know I listened to it. So he reads it himself. Yes, absolutely.
You hear me blather in your ear.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. So if you want to do that, please go ahead and check that out. But the other piece you bring up is the experience piece. Isn't just the money. And I'll go back to my father again. When I was a kid, I was so afraid of losing my father. And when I knew he was dying, it took him 2 years to die. He died of cancer. So I would literally, watch the TV news with him. And I hated TV news. I was a kid. What kid likes news, right? But I wanted to be with him. And also, as he got older, he became frail, right? When he had chemotherapy and all the things that happen when you have cancer. So he took up a hobby of photography, and he'd go to take still photos in the Arboretum. So I'd go with him. And of course, I'm like 11. I don't want to go there. It's boring, right?
Right.
But I go anyway. And the thing that you bring up is the idea of, I'm going to get it wrong, the memory dividend. Is that right?
Memory dividends, yes.
So I bring that up because after my father passed, those memories were golden for me. They were amazing for me. And I had stepbrothers, and my stepbrothers didn't get that closure that I had. And they live with years and decades of regret. And I don't. I live with a lot of joyous memories of me spending time with my father before he died. I think that memory dividend, when that part came up in the book, I thought that's what came to me.
Yeah, I mean, you're one of the cases where actually the memory dividend is probably significantly greater than the initial experience, right? A lot of times where, you go on a trip, you have any kind of experience, or you purchase something or whatever. And when I use the word experience, I mean, use it in the broadest sense of the word, right?
Sure.
So you have this activity, you have fun doing that activity, but a lot of the joy of that activity, a lot of will come from later when you recall the activity, when you share it with friends, when you share it with strangers, when you introduce yourself and you say, I went to Safari one time and I recommend this and I do that, etc. And that you get joy from that, fulfillment from that. And I call that the memory dividend. And often the summation of those memory dividends will add up to more fulfillment than the original event. Right. And so in this particular case for you, you kind of hated the original event, right? And you wanted to be with your dad, but you hated going to Arboretum. Now you look back and it's like you get a lot of joy and a lot of fulfillment and a lot of satisfaction discussing it, talking about it. You have a sense of pride about it. And this is one of the things that I talk about for people to do the calculus, the mental models for them to think about, should I delay this ski trip 10 years and take 2 ski trips, or should I take 1 ski trip now and forget 2 ski trips 10 years from now, and depending on how old you are, what kind of shape you're in, I'm obviously not delaying to take 2 ski trips from 70 to 80. That doesn't seem wise, right? Like may not ski, right? Like that doesn't seem wise, right? That kind of delaying. But maybe if I'm 20, maybe I'm like, oh no, I'll hustle and I'll save and I'll take 2 ski trips and I'll have my shit together and I'll be able to do more things and that type of thing, right? And so the memory dividend is a crucial calculation for people to think about how they're going to allocate their resources and time and when they're going to invest in experiences, because experiences pay dividends the same way stocks do, same way they pay interest, the same way banks pay interest, right?
Sure, absolutely. So I want to go back to the saving part though, right? Because when I'm talking to my clients, to my small business clients, I will tell them something similar to what you say. I'll say, look, you can't save your way to success. That's not how it works, right? You're going to have to somehow invest your way to success, whatever that might be, whether that's in people or product or service or marketing or something. You're not going to save your way to success. You've got to invest your way to success.
Right.
And they fight me on this constantly. Like, but no, I got to save here or there. Yes, I'm not against you saving, but where is the investment? There's a thing I often will do is I'll say, all right, if all of a sudden tomorrow in your small business, you got an influx of $200,000 in your small business, what would you do with the $200,000? And very often they'll go, well, I'd buy a little more of this and a little more of that. I'm like, where's the investment, right? What part of that is the investment, right? And that is how I look at what you're talking about for your experience. If all I'm doing is scrimping and saving, I'm never going to hit the thing that I want to hit. I don't want to, starve to death, obviously, but I want to always bring something in investment. And the reason why I bring that part up is in the beginning of your book, you talk about the idea that the book may not be as powerful for people who don't have as much money. I like to put pushback on that. I think the book is powerful regardless of the amount of money you have, because it's a mindset change.
Yeah. I would say that like the formula still holds no matter what level of wealth you have or health or time, the principles, the mental models and their fit. And then if you have these mental models, when you your wealth situation changes, or you get in shape, or you have X time, you're out of a period where you're grinding and in school, and now you have the free time, that you will be off autopilot and thinking about what experiences belong when, what am I saving for, as opposed to just blindly saving, right? What am I investing for, as opposed to just blindly investing? And, a lot of times when people save, I always ask them, well, what are you saving for?
Yes.
Right. And the first thing is survival, right? People want to be able to survive later on in life, right? When they retire or no longer the work. And then I'm like, okay, now what are you saving for? What are you delaying gratification for? What is the thing you cannot have now that you want in the future? Right. Or what is the thing that belongs in the future that you're looking to buy? Right. Well, and particularly my friends, I always ask them, when's the party, right? I'm older. A lot of my friends are older and they're saving. I'm like, okay, that's fine. You're saving, but when's the party?
Right.
Is it 55? Is it 57? 68? Just tell me when the party is. When are we going to start spending some of this money you have down before you check out, So, and it's a for different people, it's different times. And, the thing I remind, one of the things about the book that makes it relevant is not the fact that you just die, you deteriorate, right? Like, you obviously, sadly, your dad was sick and he deteriorated rather quickly, so you can visualize it and see it. But we're all, after 33, we're in plateau and decline, all of us. And so that means the activities that we'll be able to do and that we will actually enjoy, so we can still do them, but we won't enjoy them. Right. Like, I can go play pickup football. I'm not going to enjoy it. I'm going to pull, you know what I mean? It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. Right. There are certain activities that belong certain periods of your life. And so a lot of times people on autopilot will delay gratification to the point of no gratification.
Yes.
And then that time will pass them by and they look back and they have regrets. They die with many regrets. And I am trying to get people to die with zero regrets.
No, I like that. And the piece about this, I remember in the book, you talk often about the idea that pushback you get usually is pushback on what about the children, right? That's a positive. What about the children is a pushback you get. I don't think that's the actual pushback in my view, right? I think the pushback is accepting death, right? To talk about good life, you have to talk about death and accept it's going to happen. And when my mother passed away, a few years ago, my oldest daughter was close to her and she was very hurt by that. It bothered her tremendously. And she was young. She's probably 8, 9. She was young at the time, maybe 9. She says, Dad, it's so terrible. She died. I said, no. I said, death is a gift. She said, what? I said, it's a gift. She couldn't believe it. I said, yeah. I said, imagine this. What if you were never going to die? Why would I do anything? Why would I have you? Why would I run for office? Why would I try to achieve anything if I'm never going to die? Dying gives me an expiration date. Dying makes me want to do things. Dying is a gift. Dying makes me want to leave something behind to include her. So and when I told her that, she began to get it a bit more like, so I got to do stuff. Yeah, go do stuff.
Yeah, life is urgent, and I think a lot of people, human beings aren't wired to think about death, right? We're very wired to survive and get out of danger and run from tigers or whatever it is, right? Avoid the dark alley. But we're not wired to really contemplate our demise. And therefore, if we don't do that, we don't have a sense of urgency of things that need to be done. And life is urgent as life is now. And death is the ultimate wake-up call that life is urgent and life is now. A lot of people just kind of duck their heads in the sand and operate as if they're going to live forever. They don't act this way when they're on vacation, right? Like, they're on vacation 2 weeks and they're like, we got 2 weeks. We got to see this and go here and go to the beach and one chill day and then one walk in the park day and then whatever. And they pack it all in on this vacation, right? Like, they get it because they know it's going to end, right? Their last day of the vacation, we're going to blow it up and have a good day. But you're here on vacation on planet Earth. Your vacation maybe lasts 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 week, wherever you're going to go. But your vacation here on Earth is 79 to 86 years, and it's going to end. And not only does that end, but there's periods of your life, seasons of your life that end. Like the single you, the young toddler having a toddler you, the first job you, the college you, the 40-year-old you, the 50-year-old you. those little mini vacations, those little mini seasons, they end too. And there's
Yes.
things that if you're aware of these things and you're off autopilot and you're thinking about what I want in my life, because it's not only important what you want in life, but when.
Yes.
When is the
Sure.
optimal
Yeah.
time to have it? Those vacations end, and then you'll treat that seriously and urgently. Like my 40s are urgent. My 50s are urgent. The single me is urgent. The young toddler person, that period is urgent. And what are the things do I want to have done or experience while I have a toddler or a 5-year-old
Mm-hmm.
or a teenager, or now I'm an empty nester. Now what I want, you know what I mean? This job, etc. And so for each person, it's going to be different, right? Like it's impossible to write a book being specific about each person's wants and needs, but you can write the mental models and the way of thinking
Yes.
so that they can get the most out of their life according to their own values and have the most fulfillment.
Well, it's funny you said that, right? When I was, I spent a lot of time in Asia as a 20 something, right?
Right.
And I went to China. I just went. I went to the Philippines. I just went. Right. And my wife asked me, would you do that now? No, I'm in my 50s. I would never do that now. Right.
Yeah,
I
right.
just went out into China literally against all the rules. I was in China in a hotel. And back, this is the 90s. I'm sure it's just as bad as it is now. But I'm in a hotel and the tour guide says, do not leave the hotel ever. And I said, great. And I left the hotel. And I went right out. I went outside, just hung out in a great time. But I would never do that now. But
Right.
That's the experience that I wanted to have at that point. I went to the Philippines. I just went into towns in the Philippines with a backpack. I just went to the Philippines.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that kind of thing I would never do now. But I
know.
think
I
it's
miss
right.
that. A lot of Australians and Europeans, they take what's called a gap year before they go to college, and they just go. They generally they'll actually fly to Australia because the Australians pay very high. They have a tight labor market, right? So they want people to come in and work, and you can get a nice summer job. And this was like, I guess when I went 15 years ago, they were paying $25, $27 an hour, like at a McDonald's job, right? So like,
Wow, nice.
yeah, so they
Nice.
stash the cash, right? And then they go backpacking all through Asia, Philippines, Vietnam, wherever. They just go on an adventure and then they go to college. And I really, when I saw that, I was like, had the biggest like life FOMO of my entire life. I was like, why did I miss out on this? Why did I
But
miss
I
out on
think
this?
when I began to think about death was from a different book. I don't know if you happen to know the Book of Five Rings by Miyamoto Musashi. You
No.
know that book?
No, I do
It's a
not.
book about sword fighting, believe it or not. Miyamoto Musashi was the greatest Japanese swordsman ever. And it's a real person, based upon a real person. And he wrote a book, and it's actually mistranslated. It should be the Book of Five Scrolls. But when they have scrolls, they put a ring. So someone mistranslated it, calling it the Book of Five Rings. He talks about sword fighting. He talks about the code of Bushido, which is the code of the warrior. And he says the most important thing if you'd be successful in life is to understand you're already dead. And the only thing that matters is your legacy. And everything you're doing now is for your legacy. And I took that one step further when I read it. It was very strong for me reading that. And I said, you know what? Yeah. So everything I'm doing now is for my legacy, whatever I'm going to, leave. And I took it to one step further, which is not only am I already dead, but everything is ephemeral, except for two things, my legacy and right now. And if I take right now as seriously as possible, and I connect with every person in front of us as much as I possibly can, I will by default have a good legacy.
Yeah, I agree.
So if I focus on the now, I have a better legacy instead of trying to focus on a legacy and having a terrible now.
Right. It's always now,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
it is always
Yes.
now. It's always now o'clock. And being aware and off autopilot, can help you decide what is going to fulfill you, what your legacy is about, what your memory is about, who you connect with,
Yes.
what are the things you're going to do.
And you bring up the idea of, trying to do things early. This I love, and I teach my kids this. I'm like, my biggest regret in my life is not thinking big early enough, right? I lost my father. My mom was a working immigrant. There was no one in my life that was telling me to think big. There was no one telling me. It was always like, you'll be fine. Just go get a job, right? No one ever told me to think big. I didn't think about thinking big until I was in my 30s. And I wish I started thinking about thinking big when I was in my teens. My daughters, luckily, now already thinking big in their teens. So it's already good. I did transfer that to them. but I didn't think big early. So I always feel like I'm 10 or 20 years behind the power curve. It's how I always feel it. Because I didn't think big earlier.
Early is now, right? Like it doesn't
Right.
matter how old you are now. It's like early is now. You know, everybody who's alive listening to this most likely will be alive in 10 or 15 years, and they'll be thinking, shit, I wish I started 10 or 15 years ago on this dream or tried it or whatever. You know, and I tell people, you know, when you're thinking big and you're shooting big, it takes bigger risk. And I always, you know, advise people like, you know, what's the advice you can give me as a young person, whatever. I said, take as much risk as you can stand and then add a little bit more. So like all the risks you can stand and then a little bit more to take you completely out of something, out of your comfort zone, you know? And generally, you know, a lot of things like, oh, should I move here? Should I do this job? Should I say I love you first? The answer is yes, 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 yes. Right. Because usually the risk is usually not as great as people think. And most of the risk is fear of judgment. Most people will snap back financially from any kind of risk. They can afford the thing. They can get a job, even waiting tables and you know, come back or whatever it is. Right. Not their preference, not their ego preference, but like that's what keeps people from really trying more than anything when I look at it. And to some people, that's not them. They're like, listen, what fulfills me is playing chess in the park with my grandmother. I have a decent job, and that's what I want to do. I'm like, I'm not here to tell people how to live their life. I'm here to tell you how to optimize your life based on your choices, based on your experiences, and ask you to be off autopilot and be authentic with yourself so that you actually know what you want. And, you know, I say autopilot, like I'm you know, I'm on autopilot just as much as the next person, right? Like we have this thing called the default mode network, which is where we learn things, we get good at them. We don't even think about it. Like a lot of times people drive home, they don't even recall driving home.
Don't remember
hitting the signal button or taking the right turn. Like when you remember when you first started learning how to drive and you were like, oh my God, and I got to hit the signal. And you're thinking about your foot hitting the gas and, you know, everything is in your prefrontal cortex. Like, you know, you have to think it through. And then all of a sudden it's unconscious, right? And so a lot of routines like going to work, getting good at sales, blah, 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 saving money, etc. That starts going to that default mode network, that autopilot, right? And you start to forget, well, why was I saving? What did I really want to do? What did I want to have done? Right? And you get in these routines, right? These routines are good, but they're also bad, right? Because the routines are not there for fulfillment. They're not net fulfillment routines in the sense that they may afford you the capital or the resources to fulfill yourself, but you forget. Like what's all, you know, all the money on top of your grave is not going to do you any good. Actually, all the money, you know, 1 year before you die is not going to do you that much good.
I think most people, as you said, are, I guess, you know, kind of an autopilot. I say most people, their life is run by inertia, right? And I ask them when they have a job, I say, okay, do you have a job? It's great. How'd you get that job? Oh, well, they were hiring. That's the wrong job. Because that's the wrong reason to have the job. Because they were hiring is the wrong reason to have the job. Did you want that kind of job? Were you thinking that kind of job? Did you make a decision to go apply for that job? Or did you just, some guy said they're hiring, you walked over there and got a job? And that's most people. Why'd you date your girlfriend? Because she was there, right? These are the wrong reasons to be doing things. You should be actively going after what you want to go after, even though you're failed. Because I think inertia is also a habit, right? The habit is I just take what's in front of me versus trying to go get the thing that I think I may want, to your point, because you may be wrong. Or you may fail.
And you know, it's one of the reasons why, you know, there'll be X zillions of jobs will be open and you'll have unemployment. And yes, some people can't move, but a lot of people can move, but they won't. Right. And it's like, you're kind of just chained. You know, I was chained too. I was like, I'm never leaving Jersey City. I'm never leaving whatever. And like a lot of that was just cultural, right? It was like, wow, well, and if you think about it, it goes all the way back. It's like, well, they just happened to take the slaves and put them in here. And then my parents happened to be in Virginia as slaves. And then they got whatever and they settled here. And then I'm here. And now I don't want to leave here and I'm stuck. And it's all because of like, you know, the ship landed here as opposed to here, right? Not like, hey, would I be better off moving to Florida or Texas or wherever, California, whatever? Where do I want to be, et cetera? Just kind of this inertia and this cultural inertia, that's passed down from generations to generations. And a lot of people have that, right? I'm not saying they don't have
Absolutely.
valid reasons and wanting to stay in their town. I mean, all towns are nice, but it's not necessarily the optimal place for everybody. And
Well,
so
the other piece now is you have this idea. I'm going to see if I get it right. Time bracketing, which is the idea
time
that you kind
bucketing,
of
yeah.
bucketing. Thank you. Bucketing. Time bucketing. Thank you. Time bucketing, where you kind of put like a certain number of years together and say, okay, during this some number of years, I want to try to achieve X, or when I try to achieve Y, that kind of thing. And I love the concept because I feel like it's almost like 3-year plans in a business, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I feel it's almost like that.
It's definitely like that. It's just realizing that your life has different seasons and different things going on. I tell people life's like Tetris, the game Tetris, where
Yep.
you got to get the order right in order to get the high score and fulfillment, right? Like, and so, I always use this kind of like experiment, like you're in heaven, God's like, you're going down. You're like, great. And you're like, here's the hall of experiences, and here's your bucket, and you take all the experiences and you start throwing them in your bucket. Like, you're like, oh yeah, I'll take 10,000 sex, and and I'll go hiking, and I'm going to get this job, and I'm going to do all these things, and I'm going to have kids, and you throw all these experiences, every single one, right, into this bucket, from walking in the park to playing chess to having sex. And God goes, great, I'm going to let you have all those experiences, but here's the trick: you got to get the order right. And you're just
right.
kind of like, wait, what? Okay. And then down you go, it's
Yes.
you forget about it. Right. And so, guys that are like, hey, I want to go hiking the Himalayas and hit strip clubs or whatever, probably need to do that before you get married.
Right.
Or you have 3 kids, right? Like if 3 kids are
Right.
getting married in your bucket are there, I want to go hella skiing and jump. Probably that doesn't go in the 80 to 85 bucket. Maybe that goes in the
Right.
30 to 35 bucket. Maybe this goes into 20. You know what I mean? Like getting the order right is very important. Right.
Mhm.
Both from a, dynamic decision standpoint, right? Some of these decisions that you make affect every single subsequent decision
Sure.
in your life, right? Having kids is probably the number one thing, and getting married, right? But there's other ones like where you work, jobs you choose, things you do, vacations, et cetera. And then the other thing is your health.
Sure.
We have this
Yes.
kind of forcing function, lung capacity, mental acuity, bone density, all these things that will make certain activities less enjoyable, unenjoyable, or impossible to do as we get older, right?
Sure.
So for me,
Sure.
wakeboarding is done. Wake surfing is okay because it's a slower sport,
Mhm.
right? The boat isn't going as fast, the wave isn't going fast, but wakeboarding is a little bit faster, and it's MV squared. So if you're going 14 miles an hour, that's a 40 versus 10 miles per hour. That's a 44% increase in force than when you hit the water. Right?
Yes.
And
I
so
like that.
my wakeboarding days are pretty much done, even though I still enjoy it. And I the last time I remember, the last time I went, I said, this is probably the last time I'm gonna go. I need to do it
Mm.
now as opposed to do this other thing, because I'm not doing it 5 years from now. I have a
Right.
degenerative condition in my back that prevents me, if anybody's wondering why. But there's other things like that, like pickup football, flag football. I remember in my 30s, people were like, yeah, it's going to be the old guys versus the young guys. We're all college athletes, whatever. And it was a disaster for us older people. We were pulling hamstrings left and right. Like in our mind, we were still, we're going to enjoy this. And in reality, it's like, this is fun, but not really enjoyable. I'm done.
Yes. Yes. It's true. And the idea of the time bucketing puts now it makes it realistic. Like, what can I get done in 5 years, right? And then if I don't get it done in 5 years, there's some outside pressure to get me to actually pull the trigger and do the thing, when so many people just go, you know what, next year, you know what, next year, you know what, next
Yeah.
year. And that I think many people struggle with that.
Yeah. Just getting the what you want out of life, because in the right when period is important. It is
Yes.
different for every person, right?
Let me grab a couple comments. Getting the order right can prevent a midlife crisis.
Correct. Correct. I think a lot of people on some sort of autopilot earlier in their life, I have my regrets, like, oh, I didn't do that backpacking thing with my roommate and whatever. And then later in life, they have all the stuff they're trying to jam into a time bucket that doesn't necessarily serve them well. And then they're in a crisis
Mm,
because they're like against their situation. It's like in the wrong period, right? It causes friction
right.
and it's not as fulfilling. And then they're like, oh, they're having like phone, regrets about this time period of
Yes.
being on autopilot. I agree
The
with that.
two worst feelings that humans can feel, I think, are regret and betrayal. And betrayal, we usually don't have much power over, but regret we do.
Yeah.
Right? Regret we do. So Patty says, Bill, you just described my view of life before life. I have described it with different words and metaphors, but yes, that's how I see it. We decided what experience we have. It took me 62 years of life to realize it.
Well,
There we go.
it's now. It's always now. So you realize it now, and now you can sit there and be like, okay, from now to the grave, you can break them up in any periods. Like, what experiences do you want to have when? And that's socially, spiritually, career wise, health wise, friends wise, all the categories in your life. You can make up all the categories you want. It could be food wise. It could be like, I want to taste this before.
Sure.
I mean, it could be anything, right? It's very broad. I want to walk in the park. I want to say I love you to my grandmother. I want to talk to my mother this many times. It could be anything, but you put that out and you could start laying those things out so that you have the most fulfilling ride between 62 and the grave, whenever that is.
Absolutely. Yes. Joel says, a lot of my buckets have sprung leaks.
Could happen, right?
Feeling,
Like
Joel.
you don't pay attention to them, or you try and stuff too much in one area, or you just kind of, things can go awry. But life is discovery too. One of the things I talk about in the book is you don't wake up knowing exactly what you want. A lot of the things you don't know. I like chocolate ice cream, hate onions, love wake surfing, whatever. You go out in life, things happen to you, you discover what you want. So a lot of life is discovering what you want. And, let's not forget that aspect of it is that, if your bucket's springing leaks, get out there and discover, try some things that you haven't done. You'll be exposed and you'll find new things that you're going to put into your time buckets.
So I think a lot of the audience is popping in. Joseph says, should I get on a dating website? I'm 38 years old and single, and my family keeps giving me hints they would like me to. Now, that's two parts to that, right? One of it is what you talked about earlier, which is he doing it because his parents want him to,
Correct.
right?
Correct. Is this something it's something he wants? My thing is like, if something's important to me and it's worth doing, then it's worth my full efforts and time. And I'm willing to throw everything at it in order to get it. So if finding a mate is fine to you, yes, I would use the power of the internet. I would use the power of a website. I would use the power of networking. I use the power of traveling and random and serendipity. I would use all those things to achieve that goal. It wouldn't just be the dating website. I would not ever leave something as important to me as like finding a mate, right? Which is extremely important. Like one of the most significant relationships you'll have in your life, and some of the most fulfilling. For me, it would be one of the most fulfilling. That would be one of like 10 things I would be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. So, and it's kind of that on that same concept in a microcosm, right? Like I'm saying, I wrote this book. Use your wealth, health, and time. Use all your resources to get maximum fulfillment. Leave nothing on the field, right?
Right.
You spend them all up, right? And you're saying, well, if it's you and not your family, use all your freaking resources. Every single thing. You know what I mean? Including potluck. So like everything for your goal.
Well, Patty brings up something else. She says, an elderly woman I cared for said she wishes she cleaned the house less and spent more time making the mess with her family and friends. And you bring this up in your book. You talk about the idea of people who do so much work, however they define work, and not enough experience.
Yeah. I think, like I said, she got good at cleaning, or somebody got good at selling plastic or writing insurance policies or whatever. And, if you get good at something, you keep doing it, much like a rat in a wheel, they don't even need to put the cheese there anymore. They just show the wheel and they start running, right? Out of habit. Yep. And later in life, when death is like kind of hitting you and your knees are bothering you and, your doctor visits are more frequent, right? They can literally tell you pretty much when you're going to die based on your medical expenditures. They start to explode as you get older, as the closer you get to death. People go, shit, I wish I would have done X, Y, and Z. And we've seen a lot of this in interviews of centurions, older people, et cetera, what are their regrets? And it's kind of like in that similar vein. One of the things, I'm trying to get people to do is like, hey, let's think about our lives. Let's think about what we want, what fulfills us, when does it happen? And let's minimize that, right? This is a counterfactual regret minimization algorithm, right? That's what this book is. And it's solving for net fulfillment, right?
So I want to bring up a couple of things. One of them is I feel like what you're saying is trying to be able to kind of close off a part and move on, right? Which is challenging, right? But when I was in the Marine Corps, it's easy to close something off when I'm bad at it, right? So let's say I go off and I decide I'm going to be a sales rep and I'm a terrible sales rep. Easy to close that door, right?
Right.
But what if I'm really a good sales rep? That's hard to close that door. And I think when I was a kid, I joined the Marine Corps at 17. And by the time I was 23, I was promoted quickly. I loved the Marine Corps. I loved it. I absorbed it. It was where I found my positive male role models as a teenager. And I was a damn good Marine. Promoted quickly. I loved it. But I still got out. And I'm no longer an active duty Marine anymore. I still keep that mindset in my head, of course, but I'm not a Marine in that regard anymore. And I closed that door, and now I'm something else. And I moved on. I was a teacher for a while, right? And I thought I was a good teacher. I was a chief instructor in a school. I was good at it. But I ended that too, and I'm no longer a teacher. So I kept having to move and change and shift. And I can say most people thought I was crazy. Most people thought, why didn't you get 20 in the Marine Corps? Why'd you stop being a teacher? You should have retired. Most people thought I was nuts when I changed careers, but I've changed careers multiple times. But I think it's hard. I think I'm the oddball in that one, right? Because your point, if you're good at something, why leave?
It's not necessarily leave. It's do you enjoy the fruits of your labor? Are you the rat in the wheel who eats the cheese? Or are you the rat in the wheel who never eats the cheese? Right?
Okay. I like that.
So it's about that balance, right? It's like, I don't like people are like, I love my job. I'm like, that's fine. Just use all your resources towards net fulfillment, right? Find your balance, right? And I cannot tell people what's balance, right? Everybody's different. Like, I'm just saying, hey, just be honest with yourself. You can lie to me. Just be honest with yourself. What fulfills you? Are you doing your best for maximum fulfillment for this time period in your life and for the next time period? And how do all those pieces fit together on the way to the grave? Right. And so you want to be the plastic salesperson and the best plastic salesperson and that's fine. Plastic salesperson get paid. What do you do when you're not selling plastic? You know what I mean?
Right.
What are the experiences you want to have besides selling plastic? Have you actually thought about that? Or are you too busy on selling plastic that you're on autopilot? And with my friends, I can call bullshit. I know them. Like, you're freaking bullshitting me, yada, yada, yada. With strangers, I can't call bullshit on them. I'm like, whatever. But you have to have that Zen time to yourself to figure out, all right, am I bullshitting myself? Do I really enjoy this? Or am I just doing this out of habit? Right. Yes. And if I'm doing this and have this habit, how do I enjoy? How do I balance this out? How do I, get enjoyment? What else fulfills me? What am I ignoring in my life? Right.
Well, let's go the opposite side. Robert asked a question: joy in memories you hold dear. Yep. But what about the banking of hard or bad experiences? Not every experience is going to be joyful, right? Some are going to be terrible and tough.
No, but it's funny. I'm not an expert on this, but I've had obviously my share of terrible experiences. Like, the bargain of life is not that something. The bargain of life is something bad will happen to you. Many bad things will happen to you. It is a guarantee of life. Like, no one gets out alive, and no one gets out without having someone loved one die, heartbreak, lied, deceived, betrayed, lost money, made money, whatever. Like, that is the guarantee. So it's how you react to it. And in all these bad experiences that have happened to me, obviously, going out, have a bad experiences, they tend to fade. The pain of and the recall of them is like, oh, that was a bad time. but the associated distress with it. Now, I have never had PTSD, so I don't know, but it disappears. And to a point of a lot of bad experiences become great experiences. Like, I'm going to borrow somebody else's where they like lost their passport in a plane going to Istanbul, was stuck 3 days in the airport, whatever. And it was like, they were so angry and fighting with their spouse and whatever. And now it's the joke and the laugh at the cocktail party. It's like, it's constantly told. It's the experience. Remember that time you got kicked out of school and the thing and the
Sure.
dean? Oh yeah, man, that was bad. But it's like something positive can also come out of that. And the thing I say in the book is maximize your positive life experiences that you can, but life will happen to you. And
Absolutely.
And there are better books on perspective and how do we change these bad experiences into basically learning experiences, and then something positive that becomes like the dinner conversation. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Oh yeah, I fucked up my first marriage. Let me tell you about that. You want to hear about a fuck up? Let me tell you about a fuck up. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly. Yes.
And then it becomes like, a thing. And then now it's that radioactivity of that experience is creating more and more memory dividends and connections, etc. And so that has been my experience, but I want to just say off the bat that is not my area of expertise.
No, I get it. With that in mind, I think many of us, some of the worst experiences, as long as we don't allow it to control us, and some people do, as long as we don't allow it to control us, it can make us stronger. It can make us think differently. It can make us wiser. And sometimes we can't make our life better, but we can help others sometimes with our bad experiences, right? Saying, hey, here's what I did. Maybe you shouldn't. So Joel says, to be honest, I saw the book cover and I thought it was a financial advice book. It sounds like the advice may be more valuable than dollars.
Yeah, I would definitely like there are plenty of books out there on like how to make money. Infinite books on how to make money. Some of them I've read, or how to save money, or that particular vertical of money. And there are infinite books on health, infinite books on how to be healthy, ways you can be healthy, habits, and time management and time. What I do is I say, okay, these are the top variables you have. The interplay between these two. How do we use these resources for net fulfillment? Right? Because I don't give a shit about the money. And people are like, what the fuck do you mean you don't give a shit about the money? I care about what money affords me. I don't care about Chuck E. Cheese tokens, I care about the ride.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And so like, if I can ride the ride for free, I don't need the tokens. Right. And so like the money, or
well,
like
you've actually said the purpose of money is to have experiences.
Yeah. The purpose, money is a tool for your fulfillment, not the other way around. And so just like hammers and saws, we're not buying hammers and saws for the purpose of having hammers and saws. We're buying hammers and saws to build houses, right? Or whatever we're building. And a lot of people get stuck on, I got all these hammers and saws. Look how many saws I have. I got the latest. I got this saw and that saw and this saw and whatever. I'm just like, that is not where the fulfillment comes from, right? There's some hedonic value in knowing that you got a saw, but really the value is in the house and the thing that you build. And so really the value of the money is, how does this build fulfillment for me? Whether that's buying a house, a car, going on a trip, going to see grandma, giving to a charity, whatever it is, whatever choice you make, right?
Absolutely. So guys, if you want to pick up the book, please head over to diewithzerobook.com. It's on Audible. I've read it myself. I recommend it completely. And it's very rare that you hear me recommend books, but I'm recommending this one. So if you have a moment, please take some time. And isn't that long of a read. It's not, you can read it over the weekend easily. Easily can do it over the weekend. No worries whatsoever. You're not going to be sitting there for 6 weeks reading a book. Over the weekend, you can. There's a lot to it. So if you can, please pick it up. It makes sense. And as always, if you think this is valuable, then like, comment, and share. As I ask you to do all the time, how do I get past these algorithms? I get past them because you guys like and share. And do me a favor. Share this into other groups that you're in. Share them on a Twitter feed. Share them into a Facebook group. Make this share so people can see this. It does matter because the advice that you're hearing here is not the norm. And you might go, Larry, this isn't the norm. I know. Think of something. Most people are unhappy. Don't do what most people do. Do what the special people do, right? This way you'll be special too. Don't do that. So buy this book. It does matter. Do it. And If you love me, then throw me some love too. Throw me $10 a month on patreon.com/Sharpway. Click that link right there to keep this show going. I know you love it or you wouldn't be watching it. So please do that. It does matter. And do me one more favor. Support my sponsors, theadvocates.org, the world's smallest political quiz. Click that link. It's free. Take the world's smallest political quiz. And more importantly, and I keep saying this, share it. You're not doing anything but watching me. So share it. Click the share button. Share it someplace else so people see it. And why does this matter? When people take the test and share it, we start having conversations. And I want more and more conversations, because more conversations means more people changing their mind, but it also means more experiences for you. So share this to the best of your ability. Support the show if you can. I love it. Please like, comment, and share. And show Bill some love. diewithzerobook.com. If you bought the book already, share the link so others can buy it. Let people know what you think. It's a great book. Take a few seconds to deal with that. But there's one last piece I want to bring up, if I could, Bill.
Okay.
A piece that's really important to me that I think really landed. The idea that people avoid pain to live in misery.
Yes.
This part I have seen so many times, and I call it's what people talk about learned helplessness. They just become helpless. They stay in misery because they won't make that step to live. And so they avoid pain, but then they live in misery.
Yeah, they avoid pain to live in misery. I often see that in relationships. Right? They want to go through the pain of the breakup or the pain of telling somebody it doesn't work or whatever, and they're just gonna stick in it and live in misery, right? I see that happen. But I see it in jobs or in professional relationships, in jobs, or even health-wise. Pain of getting in shape, of dieting, or watching what you eat, or developing new habits. The pain of developing new habits, right? So that you become healthy. People just will avoid that pain and live in misery. So it's a feature of human beings. It's or a bug, really. It's a bug, and it has become a feature because people are taking advantage of it in all kinds of ways, advertising to you and preying on your misery. But
yes,
that is kind of the norm. And I'm not the Buddha here. I avoid pain and to live in misery too. I'm like, wait, am I avoiding pain to live in misery here?
Of course.
What am I doing here? What am I, those situations pop up. And so I invite everybody to look in their life and like, where am I avoiding pain to live in misery?
Yes.
That could be in a romantic relationship. That could be at work. That could be in health. That could be with your money and time. That could be anything.
I have done the opposite sometimes. I've always thought to myself that discipline is a muscle and you have to exercise it. That's what I've always thought. So I would often do things that are difficult on purpose. And sometimes I'd give myself pain unnecessarily. So I've gone the opposite sometimes. Like, I want to do this the hard way. Why? Because I don't know why, but I would do it the hard way sometimes.
Right? Like, yeah.
Yes, it's just terrible. So yes. Patty says, getting Bill's book for my son, James, who you met, Larry. Oh, yes, I remember James. I did remember him. I met him in Plattsburgh. I remember. So I can read it too. Nice. I'm so glad. That's good. Her son's a youngster, probably. Patty, what's it, 20s? I think he's in his 20s, if I remember right. So yeah, he's a youngster. So Larry, YouTube blocked my Chappelle Show video. Oh, it did. All right. Well, you can watch it next time. So yes, YouTube blocks my videos every once in a while. They don't like me. YouTube's not always my friend. So gotcha. I appreciate it. So Bill, is there anything else you want to bring up before we wrap this up? Anything you want to bring up or talk about?
No, I mean, I hope, people, if you read the book and you apply just one concept, right? A lot of people are like, oh, I'm a little nervous, or I don't want to do this or whatever. But if you just get off autopilot and you think about these things, you will have a more fulfilling life. And that is the goal of the book, is for you to have a more fulfilling life.
Absolutely. There we go. Guys, I want to say thank you so much for watching. As always, please like, comment, and share, as I say all the time. Check it out if you can possibly do it to get more people to watch it. I appreciate it. I will be back on tomorrow. Tomorrow at 3 o'clock, I will see you all with a cool libertarian I'll have on. I will see